Why are so many people overwhelmed with clutter? Disorganization is causing shame, suffering, friendships, time, money. People just like you wondering where and how to create an organized lifestyle. This podcast offers expert tips and solutions for your clutter obstacles. My name is Rachel Seavey, and this is the Organized Podcast. Hey, collectors. Welcome to the Organized Podcast. I am here with JF, and he is going to share all about WABYA with you. JF, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Rachel, thank you so much for having me, and hello to anybody that's tuning in, whether you're listening or watching. It's great to have you here, and I'm looking forward to having a great chat with Rachel, and for you today, I suppose.
Yeah. So, I tell me a little bit about your story. You have such an interesting story.
God, what a broad, expansive question
Yeah.
to start with. Um, well, my story is one of, I suppose, taking an act of radical self-love to its extreme, which is to quit a 14-year, six-figure corporate career in the middle of a pandemic because my life was just a big bucket of yuck. And that's just putting it very mildly, I suppose. But yeah, making that decision in 2020 to hand in my notice without really having any backup was probably the biggest act of self-love that I've taken for myself in my life, and actually has been kind of like the lead domino in a succession of other acts of self-love and self-respect that have led me to kind of where I am today and me speaking to you.
Wow, that's incredible and brave. I worked at corporate for a cellular company for 7 years, and it just sucked the life out of me. And I'm such a
Mm.
giver, and I was giving, but people were just taking too much and not replenishing. And there was so many politics, and I never got home and thought, wow, I really helped somebody today. I just really helped a few managers maybe run reports, but so there was like self-worth tied into that as well. And I thought the same kind of thing as you. And it was not the pandemic, but I got pregnant with my son, and I thought this is a great opportunity to just say goodbye to corporate and say hello to whatever this has to bring, which was professional organizing, which I just love.
Mm. I love that. I love that we have a parallel in our stories, and I'm sure that again, anyone listening or watching right now probably has a similar story or might be on the journey to a similar story. And I suppose that's why we're having a conversation today, Rachel, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I heard that you have some kind of, is it an app or tell me about WABYA.
Yeah, so WABYA, first of all, is an acronym for We Are Because You Are. So that's WABYA. And the reason we pick that name, what we offer essentially is coaching services. So we offer coaching for all your coaching needs, especially if you're stuck in patterns of overthinking or self-doubt, or fear of failure, or you're having a hard time setting boundaries. And that can show up anywhere in your life, really. It can show up in your relationship, it can show up at work, it can show up in your friendships. So what we want to do, and the reason we've created Wabia is really to help you, yeah, get over those self-doubt and essentially move into self-trust so that you can make the decisions that are right for you. And that's really kind of the crux of We Are Because You Are of Wabia is the notion that we, right, the collective, can't exist without you. But if you are not as fulfilled as you can be, as regularly as possible, then it's hard for you to contribute fully to a collective. And the harder it is to contribute to a bigger collective, well, the more individualistic our society gets, and that promotes kind of like divisions. So we are really big believers in empowering people to find their full power, whatever that is for them, because we know that when people do that, they start having kind of like this aura, which has a halo effect on the
Mm.
people around them, whether they try to or not. You just vibe at a higher frequency, and then suddenly people kind of pick up on that, and you kind of like bring people along with you on the journey. So by focusing on individuals and pairing them virtually with a coach, we help them get closer to who they truly are, and we know that's going to have like a positive impact on the people around them. A little bit kind of like what you were saying, Rachel, right? This decision that you've made to leave this corporate job was for yourself, and as a result, you kind of started organizing, which led you to where you are today with your podcast and your business. You've been doing this for years now, and I'm sure that your vibe increased and became a lot more positive and constructive as a result, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's I've done a lot of self-help and work on myself over the years and been very happy to share the coaching experiences that I've had and learned. And it's really amazing just how you continue to grow. And the more you kind of connect with people and are able to share more of yourself, then um, you just feel better. And so it's not like therapy. And so I always try to explain to people coaching, and sometimes people think, I'm just trying to sell them an extra service or something,
Mm,
and it's maybe just hearing it from someone else, kind of what coaching is and how it can make you feel so excited and empowered.
yeah. Yeah, thanks for asking. It's a great question. And coaching has a lot of underlying kind of meanings for a lot of people, right? Because people think about it from a sports perspective, and maybe they've heard of Tony Robbins, and that gives them an idea of what that is and that isn't. But I think one thing that you brought up just now in your answer is actually a great starting point for coaching. It is about self-help, but it's about guided self-help. It's a process by which you help yourself get back and explore what matters most to you and putting that into action with the help of someone who's basically a professional at helping you observe yourself and give yourself different perspectives, basically. So where I work with a client, my job isn't to give them advice or tell them what to do, but it's more to help them and encourage them come up with the solutions that are right for them. And that makes the whole difference, right? Because whenever you think about getting a piece of advice, like I would say like at least 9 times out of 10, advice is not fantastic because it ignores a little bit your entire reality, right? Everybody lives within their own kind of vision of the world, within their own reality of the world. And so somebody else giving you a piece of advice is basically somebody that doesn't have your full context telling you how to do something. And usually that doesn't really work. There's always good nuggets in advice, and there are kind of like quotes that we can pull that have been cited for ages and ages because they're generally, great. Even stuff you find in religious texts, loving others, right? Like you'd love yourself, or loving yourself like you'd love others. These become recurring kind of pieces of advice, I suppose, that we use in everyday life. But coaching is more about helping you come to terms to what that means for you. What does loving yourself actually mean? What does caring for yourself actually mean? And very crucially as well, Rachel, one thing that you've mentioned has to do with the fact that this isn't therapy. This isn't about looking into your past and trying to help you understand some of the traumas you may have gone to, but coaching really is about exploring where you are now and how you want to move forward. So, in short, right, for the soundbite, coaching is about where you are now, where you want to move forward to, and giving you an opportunity to have a guide within the self-help process on that journey.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. You summed it up great. And I love that there's different kinds of coaches. So I have a business coach who right now is just helping me kill it. Like, and people would think, why at 15 years do you need a business coach? Well, I felt stagnant inside. And I reached out to somebody that I found on the internet, not anyone I knew or anyone that's asked me, because I have a lot of people that ask, if they could coach me. But and this guy's just been great. He's just what I needed. I needed a kick in the ass. And
Mm,
then I have a relationship coach who,
mm,
bless her heart, just deals with my whining and dealing with why I'm still single and things like that.
mm,
But she's gentle and knows a lot of my background. I've shared a
mhm,
lot, and not really trauma, just informational stuff. And it's fun because I have these two people that are experts in what they do, just kind of saying,
mm,
"Hey, here's a boost." And it's things I can do on my own, but it's nice to have someone cheering you on. And it's really nice having someone that isn't connected in your life cheering you on. It's the
Yes.
weirdest. It's like having a bestie or like your biggest supporter, like just a phone call away. And,
Hmm.
and it's not cheap. I mean, I feel like it's a fair price to be able to
Hmm.
have that kind of support from these people that I know that if I start feeling lonely, I can, set up an appointment with her. If I start feeling antsy with business, I can call David. It's just these kind of things where you feel better. You're like, cool, I've got a team. It's
Yes.
not just me against, and because your partner, your friends, they're all tired of hearing this shit. Like they're tired of hearing about collector dating. They don't want to hear this stuff. They're like, okay, yeah, you're single. Oh, you're dating. Oh, it's boring to them. And they have advice, like you said, where you're just like, ooh, I don't want to meet people at bars. Sorry, girlfriend. Um, so you have advice from friends that you've known for years, but it's not that great. Getting that advice
Mhm.
from a professional that specializes and knows and works with people in the same situation is incredible. It's invaluable.
Mm.
Um, and that's why I'm so excited to have you on because
Mm.
I thought you do a great job at explaining coaching, but then you actually have an action someone can do, like they can download your app
Mm.
and I think that's helpful for people because once you decide like, oh, I want to coach, it's kind of hard to find someone.
Yes.
You could do a Google search and a million people come up.
Well, and that's I mean you've hit the nail on the head on so many elements. First of all, I just want to like shout you out for getting a couple of coaches in different aspects of your life, different parts of your life. I think that's recognizing that that is we are because you are, right? You're recognizing that you can't do it on your own, that you need some support, and you're also recognizing the validity of having support that doesn't have any skin in the game with your life, unlike a family member or a close friend who doesn't have an agenda, perhaps. And that's the beauty of having a coach. It's someone that will be with you because that's their job to be with you every step of the way, not because they have to, because they're a family member or because, they have to because they're a friend, but because you're obviously paying them for that service, but their entire job is to support you. And it's completely unbiased, which you also pointed out. I also love the fact that you've mentioned the fair price. One of the things that WABYA is trying to promote, and yes, there are thousands and thousands of coaches out there. What we want to promote is accessibility and affordability. So every single one of our coaches, so if you go on wabya.com, you can sign up following the kind of sign up button there, basically, and all of our coaches are certified by the International Coaching Federation. Now, very importantly, coaching is not a regulated profession, unlike psychotherapy. And what that means is that anyone can call themselves a coach. I have experience in accounting. I can be an accounting coach or a business coach if I've started a business before. Now we're veering towards mentorship, which is different than coaching because mentorship involves a lot of advice giving, right? So the coaching that we offer is very much based on the code of ethics that's been put together by the International Coaching Federation, which is the largest accrediting body in the world. And all of our coaches have graduated from a program that's accredited by the International Coaching Federation. So it is important that you look at what is it that you actually need. If you want someone to be more directive in your life, then maybe you could look for kind of a mentorship relationship, which is absolutely fine. But if you want to do the work yourself, which is, this is what we think. We think this is where the beauty of it lies, really. The power of it is when you start enacting your own changes in your life. Then having a coach that's going to be there, not just to listen inquisitively at you without saying anything, but rather to prompt you and to challenge you and to cheerlead you in different ways, then our services are excellent. And we come in at a really affordable price point. So we're based out of the UK. So we're based out of London. We're offering our services for about £40 for a coaching session, which is probably around like 55 US dollars for a coaching session. Don't
Yeah,
quote me on the
sure.
exchange rate. Have a look at it. But that is much more affordable than what you can usually find for an excellent quality coach. Because we believe, well, part of our reason of being is making this service accessible and affordable to as many people as possible. And very often, you think about a coach, it's either a sports personality or a high-flying executive. That's not true. And it should be true. Like, you shouldn't prevent yourself from getting the guidance or the support that you need, just because it might seem like only a certain I suppose group or cast of people have access to these services. That's what we want to do, is democratize access to this service. And that's why our main focus isn't necessarily in big businesses like, I suppose a lot of the other business, the companies, the coaching companies in the world are focusing on bigger businesses. We're really looking at making an impact from direct to consumer standpoint. So you sitting where you are right now, listening or watching this,
That's
it's entirely for you, and it's entirely possible. Actually, I'm curious, Rachel, you mentioned that uh, in our pre-meeting and even in what you were just saying a little bit before, you were talking about working with clients, helping them organize themselves, and getting maybe not pushback, but like skepticism around coaching and people going like, oh, I'm not sure I really want that. Like, why do you think that is?
I think people think it could be like therapy and they don't want to deal with why they're cluttering.
Mm,
Um, and a lot of it has nothing to do with why they're cluttering. We're coming up, I want to help them come up with a plan in the future on how they could, live a better life. It's not really talking about past traumas or how it got that way. I mean, that comes up a lot of the time, but mostly it's like, hey, where do you want to be in 5 years? What do you want to do in 10 years? A lot of my
mm,
clients are retired. Um, and so it could be maybe a generational thing now that I just said that. A lot of
yeah.
my clients are between 60 and 90, and maybe they haven't heard of coaching. Or, I like Tony Robbins, but he scares the crap out of a lot of other people. So
Yeah,
maybe they're
of
like,
course he does.
I don't want to
He's
coach.
very intense. He's very intense.
Yeah.
He's got a very
So
specific style.
yeah, so people
Oh,
don't know that there's, someone that's kind of mellow and dedicated and, someone like you, they might just see someone that's kind of outrageous and on stage. Um,
mm,
so I think it could be an age thing. I think there's just a kind of a confusion. What is coaching?
yeah,
I know my clients, a lot of them really need the hands-on work. So they say like,
yeah.
well, what do you mean? You're still gonna, haul the trash out, right? And so there's kind of a disconnect there with my hands-on clients. But I think a lot of the listeners here are really the self-help kind of folks. They're the DIYs. They're
Mm,
people that they don't want organizers in their home yet. So they're listening,
mm,
for ideas on how to kind of get over an obstacle. And
mm,
clutter is something that I feel like most coaches would probably be able to handle. Um, a lot of it is basic advice on how to store things or how to let things go, but
mm.
then there's the idea of where do you want to be once, I always say, what imagine your house clean. Like, what would you be doing now? And I
I
don't know.
mean,
People go, I don't know what I would be doing. And that's what gets us excited, right? It's like, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, I'm 70. I have, my life is over. And it's like, no, no, no,
oh
no.
man.
Yeah.
No, I'm like fully on board. I mean, again, you said so many really wonderful things. I think one of the things I need to repeat here, and especially if those listening or watching are really big into self-help, like think about it as self-help, right? If you're a self-starter and you want to help yourself, and there's this sense of accountability, right? Self-accountability is really important. It is self-help. Coaching is self-help. It's just guided self-help. You do it yourself, but you have somebody along for the journey that goes like, oh, okay, cool. You're doing this now. Is that in line with what you wanted or what you decided that you wanted? I'm not judging, but if it isn't, why is that? And actually, the other thing that you said that really, obviously, I'm quite excited right now. You can see from from my gestures and my tone of voice. But the other thing that you said, the parallels between living in physical clutter and coaching, I think, are incredible because really, coaching helps you declutter what's inside, right?
Yeah.
And And by that, I don't mean like, let's go back to the root cause of the trauma and you are cluttering because you had a terrible relationship with your mother and this happened. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is what is happening right now internally that you're having a hard time clarifying. One thing I've started using so much this year with my clients, and it's been a game changer, is a very simplified emotions wheel, right? So if you type in emotion wheel online on Google, you'll get ones that have like 72 words around it. Mine has like, I don't know, 16. They're very, very simple. So on the uncomfortable emotions side, you've got stuff like sadness and anger and fear. And on the comfortable side, you've got confidence and happiness, like words that everyone can understand, or the 5-year-old could understand. And the reason that's been a game changer is because we spend a lot of time in our minds dealing with our mind is bringing up. And usually it's like trying to like resolve issues or like think about solutions. And then we get really dragged into this melodrama that's in our heads. That's a lot of overthinking, right? We spend a lot of time here, but we don't spend a lot of time below our neck. So the minute that you're able to intellectualize an emotion, going like, I'll ask a client, oh, that's interesting. In the case of cluttering, like, oh, why do you clutter? And we go like, okay, well, I clutter because I can't let go of things because they're very meaningful to me. Okay, what's so hard about letting go of things? We look at the emotion and well, actually, I'm a little bit anxious. Anxious leads to fear. Great. What's the anxiety? What's the fear about? And then suddenly, in the present moment, we can talk about an emotion that's real. I'm afraid that if I let go of something, it means I'm losing a piece of myself. That's pretty significant. What does that mean? And the minute that we start doing that, and the reason I'm talking about emotions, and I want to encourage everyone to be able to label emotions, is because once you're able to identify what's prompting a certain pattern of thinking or a fear of something, right? Like something's happening in your head, you're not quite sure what's happening, but it feels really overwhelming. If you can tie an emotion to it and I suppose interrogate that emotion,
Hmm.
then you get to the bottom of what it is that you are actually feeling. And if you get to the bottom of what you're feeling, then you can figure out the reason why you're feeling that way. Once you do that, then you can make an informed decision as to how you want to move forward. So there's this entire kind of body-mind connection, I think, that we're losing, and that creates a lot of clutter in the mind. And I suppose what I'm saying again, I've worked my way through it, and I'm going to give you the bite-sized version of it. If you think about external clutter, it has a lot to do with internal clutter. And internal clutter usually is your mind's reaction to not wanting to deal with something that your body is experiencing, something that's uncomfortable. And usually that's an emotion. Overthinking usually has to do with underfeeling. You need to get out of here, of your head, tune into your body, and just name what it is you're feeling, especially if it's an uncomfortable emotion. And usually that's what we're trying to avoid, right? We're not trying to avoid like happiness or confidence, right? No one's going out there going like, yuck, I don't want to feel confident, right? Everyone's going out there going like, I don't want to feel angry. I don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel afraid. So we get in your head and the brain starts coming up with protection mechanisms. This is your reptilian brain trying to protect you. I'm convinced that a lot of external clutter comes first and foremost from that internal clutter. And I'm sure you've maybe noticed it in your clients.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of my clients have ADHD, so their internal mind is constantly, going, and then the outside reflects that as well. And a lot of them really want to be creative. So they buy all these crafts and things, and then they feel ashamed because they haven't done all the crafts. So there's so many emotions tied in with the clutter. Um,
Mm,
Obligation, I spent so much money on this. So like something as simple as like a piece of a roll of yarn, hey Betty, do you want this yarn or not? Could be really emotional and she might not even realize what she's feeling. It's like,
yes.
and it's because like, oh crap, that's the 90th thing of yarn we've seen today. That's embarrassing. Rachel's probably judging me. People, and I'm not, but people get ashamed and then they say, God, how much money have I spent on yarn collectively?
Uh,
So then
Uh-huh.
it's like, God, and I really thought I was going to knit those hats for the newborns at the hospital. Then there's this
Mm.
like guilt and shame and so
Hmm.
just one thing, a yarn could hold so much emotion in it. And you're just
Yeah.
like, keep or donate. And they're just like, keep. Because it's just too much. So just keep it because it's tied to all of these other feelings. And I would love the opportunity and the time to work through that. Typically when I'm on site with people, I can't. I try and kind of guide them, and but
Yeah, because
it's
you're there
not
for
as
the practical
intimate.
reason of like clearing the clutter. That's
It's
literally, yeah,
Yeah, so it's not as intimate as it would be if I was having a session with someone on Zoom.
where you'd be like, what is the guilt or what is the shame about? And then they could
Yeah.
be like, to your point, like, well, actually, I thought I was going to be knitting these tiny hats for the newborns at the hospital, but I haven't, so I feel really guilty about that. And sometimes, I'm just holding space for a client to feel the emotion. And sometimes it's fine. Everybody feels guilty and everybody feels shame. They're natural emotions. I think where it becomes a problem is when probably in the within the realm of clutter, it becomes a pile, a clutter of uncomfortable emotions on top of each other, and it just becomes this very tangled ball of mess, basically, that's really hard to I suppose to get to the heart to. But I am convinced underpinning all of this, and this is what something I fundamentally believe. Please don't quote me. I don't have like a doctorate or a PhD in any of this, but I really fundamentally believe that there are two core emotions that drive who we are as humans. There's a comfortable one and there's an uncomfortable one. The comfortable one is love, and the uncomfortable one is fear. And fear is for me the root of like shame and guilt and sadness and anger, right? Like I could make a Star Wars quote out of this. It leads to the dark side. But do you know what I mean, right? However, those two things are necessary for us to be humans. It's okay to feel guilt and shame. It's okay to be afraid to not be enough because part of it is evolutionary, right? We were like created to keep on surviving, and so for that we have to be the best version of ourselves. That means physically, emotionally, psychologically, we have to be in society and learn to live in society. And if we feel like we're failing at doing that, then it triggers these negative emotions. And the more you avoid dealing with these emotions, which we're not taught, and by the way, the cohort that you spoke of, that group of people there, 60 to 90, I mean, they're from like they grew up in like the 50s or 60s.
Mhm.
This is not something their parents taught them. Their parents went to the First World War. Basically, in the UK, we say like keep calm, carry on, right? You don't talk about your feelings. You have to stiff upper lip. You
Mhm.
don't complain. You just do what needs to be done. Well, that's great, but that also made like a few generations of pretty heavily traumatized people because nobody dealt with their feelings. Now that we know better, and I love something that you said earlier, Rachel, it's never too late, right? You're 70 now, great. You've got 20 more years ahead. What do you want that to be?
Yes.
We need to encourage people to live their lives fully, no matter when it is that they start waking up to the fact that there is more life to live for them. And
Yeah.
I want to work with people who are 20. We have some clients who are 20, and I'm like, great, you are awake, and I want to work with you because that gives you like 60 or 70 years to have such a positive impact on the world. But if you're 70, that's great. There's 20 years ahead.
Yeah.
Let's work on those years. Let's make something beautiful. You can create something new. Oh man. I just love people so much. I just like see the spark in everyone. The spark of possibility is always there. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how old you are. You have a unique spark that has never existed before, doesn't exist now except inside of you and will never exist again. That means that your life is entirely yours to do what you will with it because no one can own that spark except you. Like even you, Rachel, even me, like we're both unique.
Right.
You're doing your thing in your own way and you're picking your path and no one can tell you what that path is. And you're choosing it and you're choosing to be guided along the way with a
Oh,
business
yeah.
coach, with a relationship coach, and you're choosing to guide people along the way as well with the work that you're doing. Sorry, I'm on a bit of a ramble here, but I get so passionate about this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely understand. I mean, I'm super excited about the price point. I think that's really fair for people. And to be honest, I mean, that's usually what people's first question is, so I think that's really fair. And so the process is they go onto WABYA, WABYA.com, and they
Yeah.
create like a profile like they would somewhere else,
Not even. They
Oh,
just go on, they click on start your journey, they fill in literally a 2-minute questionnaire, and we do the rest in the background. Now it's great because I suppose we've got the benefit of being a startup, so there's not a lot of us, so we're very hands-on with everything. So the coaching and the matching process, you don't have any other decision to make except to fill in this 2-minute questionnaire.
mhm.
I'll then receive an email. I'll look at our pool of coaches. I'll see who's available based on your responses. I know the coaches that we work with. We have a bench of about 20 coaches now.
Wow.
And I'm the one who does the pairing manually. Now,
Wow.
eventually, yeah, no, it's like manual pairing. There's no computer
AI.
involved. There's no AI involved.
I
It's
like
like
it.
there's a human component.
Ooh,
The people that we've talked to about investment are questioning how we're going to be scaling this, but right now what we want to focus on is providing the very best possible service in the most human way. And of course, we're using AI for different parts of our business to help us think through our business planning and our marketing and everything, even our hiring processes. I'm using AI to help me find the right coaches for what it is exactly that we need.
nice.
But we are a very, very human business. And the first thing that you need to know about coaching, it is a human to human connection. I have tried getting coached by ChatGPT. And you know what? I love the product. I love the service. I think it's fantastic, but like it's not a human being. There are like just your face right now. It would have not have been able to read how you reacted to that statement. Your
Oh,
eyes opened wide. I immediately saw the surprise in your face. There's just a human component that is so important. And I love the fact, obviously, I think the pandemic precipitated that, but we can have this you can we're based out of London. You can be based out of California and have a chat with a coach. Morning your time, evening their time. I'm chatting with Rachel. It's what, 8 a.m., 8:30 in the morning for you?
yeah.
It's 4:30 in the afternoon for me. And I'm seeing everything I need to see about your face to let me know how this conversation is going.
Yeah.
So what we offer is my guarantee. It's interesting because even without a computer involved, we've got a 98% matching success rate. So I know when I see a client come in, my gut is usually like, I think this is the right coach for it, and I follow my gut and I make the connection. And 98% of the time, it's a good match. And if it isn't, we just pair you with another coach. We explore a little bit with the, I don't know, whatever friction might have been, and then we go for something else. But the key point, I think, and I think this is something you alluded to, it's about starting, right? Wanting to be in a place where you want to start.
Yeah, yeah. And I think just the more I heard about coaching, because obviously there was a point where I knew nothing about coaching and now I do. So getting the message out to people that you can have this kind of support person dedicated to you, it's really a cool feeling, and it does feel a little like fancy in a way, like wow, because all of Hollywood, I mean, lots of people have coaches, and so it's like
Uh,
making it reasonable and accessible is really cool. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it, Rachel, right? Like, I think, again, you're touching on like such important points every time you open your mouth. Thank you so much because you're right. You do it. Okay, you're in California and obviously you're near LA. So there is an understanding that all these highfalutin people have like these like really this entourage of people that help them do their thing. Well, it's the same thing. We're just making this accessible and affordable for everyone. You don't have to live on Rodeo Drive or in the hills to have access to this. Um, and very critical as well as if these people treat themselves to those things, and by some metrics have a very successful life, some metrics, because I mean, what lies under the water, the surface, we never know. But by many metrics, a lot of these high flying, whether they're creatives or they're executives, live highly successful lives. Then why wouldn't you treat yourself to the same thing? You said earlier something that stuck with me and that comes to mind now, which is, people ask, so how much is this going to cost me? I want to get to the point where people don't have to interrogate how enhancing their own well-being and their own lives um, is like a not a penny pinching exercise. It's not the right thing I want to say, but I want it to be as second nature as going like, okay, this month I'm putting a roof over my head, I'm putting food on my table, and I'm making sure I'm emotionally, mentally, um, sound and steady by having a coaching session, which is going to cost me, I don't know, $60 or whatever.
I mean, that's incredible. That's
Mm,
definitely and I think one thing that, people question like, why would I get a coach? And it's like, I don't know everything. And so you could be successful. And most of the executives I know have coaches, and most of the
mhm,
wealthy people I know have health coaches,
mhm,
whether it's a
mhm.
spiritual coach or a health coach, and they're paying a lot for these
They are.
services. Oh my gosh, so feeling like you could be included and take good care of yourself. That's I mean, it's like getting a manicure. It's like, self-care. Like today I'm gonna
That's
get a
exactly it.
massage. Like that's how it should be thought of, like is something that people do to make themselves feel better. And I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm all for it. I think it's great.
I know you're a super good advocate, Rachel, and clearly you've seen the benefits working with your business coach and your
Mhm.
relationship coach. And
Oh yeah.
I want to be honest. I know this because it's my bread and butter, but like it took my wife 3 years to kind of go like, oh, okay, now I get what you're saying and why this is important. And the reason she finally got it is because she finally got coached. So
Mm,
last year she was at a point where like professionally she was like, I'm having some issues with this specific person. I need to engage in a conversation about this. I can't talk to my husband about it. So for probably the 12th time since 2020, 21, I was like, now a good time for coaching, maybe? Do you want to do you want to give it a go? And she said yes. And I paired her with a woman who in her 60s named Virginia. She's one of our coaches, and she changed her entire career around at the age of 60. She had a bit of a creative background, but a bit of a business background as well. And it was a perfect match. And within, I think my wife did like 6 sessions with Virginia. And she came out of it and she was like, I get it. I get why this is so beautiful. It works so well. It is a bit of magic, but as you've probably realized, you need to kind of experience it. And actually, for the listeners and the viewers, like, what are the key things that you have gotten from your relationship with your business coach and from your relationship with your relationship coach?
renewed motivation. I'm starting to feel about my business like I did 15 years ago. It was just getting kind of like, oh, boring and stagnant. And I don't know, just kind of like just that renewed interest and excitement about building my business and getting more clients and doing more events. And I had just kind of lost that spark. And it just really helped me. And a lot of the things that we're doing together are things I already know, obviously, inside. But I just needed someone to kind of help me clear the noise and focus on what it was I was really struggling with. Is it my ads? Is it do I not have enough time for myself? Because I can stretch myself super thin. I'm really good at saying yes
Mm,
to everybody. So somebody, and then people will say stuff like, gosh, Rachel, you work, you never leave time for yourself. But when somebody outside tells you stuff like that, you really listen. You're like,
mhm,
and so that's been helpful. It's been helpful for me to really see what my time management is like. Because it's different at 45 than it was at 30. At 30, I was just impossible. I was doing everything. And now I have to be a little bit more strategic with my time and energy. So, and it's exciting just to, I mean, I can't wait to have my next session with him because it's just, and again, I said it's stuff I already know, I mean, it's stuff that's, you could easily Google search, SEO and figure, but having someone that's an expert in it and just really helping me figure out what it is I want to do with
yeah.
all of this, has been helpful. Relationship coach, you know, it's frustrating to be single at 45, I will tell you that. But
Mm,
then again, it's also really nice to not feel like I have to rush out and find someone. So a lot of what I've learned is that I really enjoy being by myself, and this might be that time. And instead of feeling like sad about it or comparing myself with my friends, um, just saying, well, actually realizing that maybe I don't want to date right now has been a game changer because I just always just went from person to person to person.
Yeah.
And then now I'm like, do I want to? And she'll ask me questions like, do you want to come home from a long day after work and have, this guy watching football, feet up on the coffee table? And I'm just like, oh God, no, no, I don't think I'm ready for that right now. Like
Mhm.
absolutely not. Um, which is fun because I was convinced that I really needed someone.
Mhm.
And not also emotionally, I know now I'm rambling, but financially, that was a big one for me. Like I always thought I needed this dual income. California, you need a dual income, dual two-parent household kind of a
Mhm.
thing. I mean, there's a big financial pressure living here, and she allowed me to sit back and say, "Holy shit, I'm doing it all on my own." Instead of this like, oh my God, I don't have someone to help me pay the bills, and oh my God, it's just me. I'm like, holy shit, I am doing it on my own. And then it's been a very empowering um relationship with my relationship coach. And it really doesn't have anything. She's not, telling me what to put on eHarmony or anything. Like we've gone to this whole nother like embrace being single mode. And that's been super helpful for me.
Yeah, it sounds really healthy, and it sounds like you're learning to love yourself for where you are now instead of for a future version of yourself that you're not even keen on, basically.
Right. Yeah. And that's what coaching can kind of help you do. You can kind of look into the future and say, "Oh, maybe I don't want that." Like, wait a minute. But if you're stuck in your head and feeling all, bad and stuff,
Exactly.
but having that outside person say, "Hey, wait a minute. Okay, you want to be in a relationship? Tell me what that's like." You know?
Well, and that's it. That's the power of coaching. It's kind of like you already have thought about all this, but then somebody asks you the question like, "Hey, do you want to be in a relationship?" And suddenly the first thing that comes out of your mouth is no. You're like, "Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't sure because it's been in my head and I've been emming and awing, like drinking martinis with the girls, and they all have boyfriends, and I'm feeling like a bit of FOMO right now because they seem to be enjoying themselves. But actually, if the answer is no, the answer is no, at least not right now. And the great thing is there's always an opportunity for a change, right? Within the next week, things might change for you, and you might be like, you know what? Now I'm kind of ready to meet somebody else. But then that will be on your terms. And ultimately, I believe that that's what coaching gives you. You get to make the choice, the choices that are right for you. Your coach will encourage you not to consider all the externalities in your life, but rather to consider what really matters and is true to you. And that's the game-changing element. Suddenly you start paying attention to to yourself, which again, thinking about, you've talked about like that age range 60 to 90, like I think a lot of previous generations were taught that like that's selfish. I shouldn't think about myself. But that's bullshit. Because if you can't fill up your own cup first, how can you fill up anybody else's cup?
Right.
Right? If you don't put your oxygen on mask first when something's happening, then how can you help others in their lives? How can you be there for others? You need to be able to take care of yourself first and foremost before you're able to take care of anyone else. I remember my mom telling me this when I was like 14, and it took me like probably 25 years to kind of finally get it.
Yeah.
And even as I was getting it, I was like, but that's weird because I'm feeling selfish and I'm like taking time off. I'm not replying to these messages immediately. I'm not calling people back right away. I'm taking the time I need to respond to an email, or I'm telling people I don't want to go out to a party. All of these things seemed like horribly selfish when I was in my 20s. And then slowly as I got later into my 30s, and obviously through a burnout, which is basically was a reflection of my not really listening to myself at all and knowing myself at all. Now, what I'm focusing on is making sure that I keep knowing myself, I keep loving myself, and I keep trusting myself. And that just becomes a virtual circle because I keep learning new things about me. I'm not a static being. You're not a static being. Nobody that's listening or watching right now is a static being. But if you can keep checking in, understanding what's happening internally, whether it's in your head or how you're feeling about things, Learning to like cut yourself a break. Okay, well, I'm having a shit day. I'm feeling guilty or shameful or angry about something. Fine. Those are natural human emotions. Give yourself some love. Cut yourself some slack. Treat yourself like you would treat your best friend.
Right.
Most people don't do that. Then, after you know yourself and you love yourself, then you can start really trusting yourself. When you trust yourself, you don't second guess yourself. You start stopping the second guessing. It just becomes kind of this flow state that you're into, going like, oh, this is how I feel. I know what that means and I know who I am. I'm just going to take that action. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
Just trusting the process. And a coach can help with all of that.
absolutely. Yeah, trust. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you forever. I don't know. I think a lot of my listeners and clients don't trust themselves. And so just getting that value out of coaching is incredible. You know, they don't
Mm.
trust that they can't overshop. They don't trust that they are going to take out their trash. There's no trust there. They don't, they're, you know, it's almost like two separate individuals, you know, the one that's hoarding, and then there's the person that's there watching it. And yeah, so that would be really incredible if people could just learn how to trust themselves through coaching.
I mean, coaching is the biggest driver of self-belief that potentially exists. And frankly, if you can't, and this is a cliche, and as it was coming out of my mouth, I knew it was a cliche, but if you can't trust yourself, who can you trust?
Right.
There's a notion about wanting to stop delegating your self-authority to some kind of external component. That's so important, and that's what coaching is brilliant because again, it's not about somebody telling you what to do. It's about somebody encouraging you to figure out what's right for you. It's guided
Yeah.
self-help, guided self-trust, guided self-love.
Yeah. Wow. That's so powerful. So I will have links to your website and information about you in the description of this episode.
Any questions? We're on Instagram at We Are Because You Are. You can drop us a DM. I'm happy to respond to anything. We manage our own socials. Again, we're small but mighty, so we're very hands-on. And you know, you're not never going to get a bot if you reach out to us. It's either myself or Craig, or sometimes we have some additional support. But yes, please reach out through the links that Rachel is going to share under the episode description.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Organized Podcast. Please make sure you're subscribed and join our Organized Podcast Facebook page and get additional tips and challenges.